Hi and welcome back once again to our GDPR compliance journey. This time we're talking about our processing activity record. Now we have a system for that which we'll show you in a second, but we should first start by saying that, like many areas in the GDPR, you have some discretion as to some of the things that you might do which are best practice rather than mandatory. So in the case of the record of processing activities or processing activity record, it's not necessarily mandatory. So if you are less than 250 employees, if you don't process special categories and things like that, then you don't necessarily have to do it. But at Guideline, we're choosing to do it because we think it's best practice. So we'll take a look at our system in a second. First, just to say that if you want to complete your own processing activity record, there's a template available on guideline.com. The link should be on the screen about now. And so without further ado, let's dive in and have a look at our record. So we're now looking at our processing activity record, and we start with a few basic pieces of information: the date of the review and some organisational information. I guess most notably the name of the data protection officer needs to be in the record. And then we go on to talk about the processing. So a list of other organisations that process data on our behalf. So some of these that will be common among many companies: Microsoft for things like Word and Excel, and Amazon Web Services for hosting platforms. There'll be a lot of organisations using those two. And for us, we then have our accountants and our business applications suite. And that really links into the organisations that have received the personal data. So our accountants and Zoho via our CRM, and AWS in terms of the software we use there. The categories of data that we process: customers, employees, prospects, and suppliers. At the moment, no sensitive or special categories for us. We then talk about, have we transferred information out of country? And the answer is yes here, although because we are transferring within the EU safe areas, it's not as much of an issue as it might be if we were transferring, say, to Africa or South America, which are considered non-safeguarded areas. So in our description around the safeguards that are in place, I've said that it's gone to safe encrypted locations within the EU, and some information about how those transfers happen. In terms of our retention period, what we're saying is that for customers within the Guideline software, when they stop being customers of ours, we retain the details for 6 months after the end of subscription in case they want to come back and use the software again. Within our CRM, we review the customer details every 12 months, and inactive ones are removed. However, we do retain email and a surname of people that have opted out of communications with us. Without that email data, we would not be able to know who has opted out, and then therefore there's a danger that we might email them again, and we don't want that to happen. And finally, on the kind of the mandatory aspects of the processing record, the technical and organisational measures that are in place. Now, I've not completed this at the moment because we've got more work to do in our GDPR journey around putting all of those measures in place, so I didn't want to put a partial answer in there. So when we come back for our next review, which you can see in the record is in 1 month's time, we'll be populating that area more fully. So this is going to be a monthly activity for Guideline to review and update our record of processing activities. There isn't a mandatory review period within the GDPR. We just feel that it's best practice to review it once a month. We then come down to kind of best practice or non-mandatory elements within the processing record. And again, we think that we would like to store this information with the record so that we can demonstrate our compliance with the GDPR as fully as possible. So we've already done our data mapping, and there's a link there to our data map. we have a privacy notice on our website, and we'll be updating that in a couple of weeks' time. Next time, we're going to be talking about policy, so we'll be putting links to all those different policies. We'll be putting any record of consent. We already have some data protection impact assessments which are linked to, but again, we'll be refreshing those in a few weeks' time. And then any information about contracts or breach. So all of that information goes together to make, we hope, a complete record of the personal information that we are processing. So the main purpose of having that record in place really is to demonstrate accountability, to show how you are complying with the GDPR and how you are meeting some of those requirements. And as we go through the next few months and we complete a more full record, then hopefully we'll be showing that. So that's it for this time. Next time we'll be talking about policy. So until then, we hope you find your compliance simple.